Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm Becky O'Brien. I'm the chair of the RAC Communications Subcommittee who puts on this meeting each time. And I just want to take a quick moment to thank the RAC Communications Subcommittee. If you all could stand up and show people who you are. Thank you very much. I also wanted to recognize and welcome any newcomers. If this is your first meeting, if you would stand up and let us know who you are. Welcome. We got a couple of people. Welcome. And we have remote attendees, so we have people joining us via live webcast. Hello out there. And just a few housekeeping items. So we've got sign-in sheets and name tags on the tables. If you please fill it out, let us know who you are and where you're from. And we also switched to instead of agendas printed for everybody, we thought we'd save a little paper and try these new tabletop agendas. So, our survey, let us know if this is, if you like this, if you really like writing on the physical agenda, let us know. And then the presentation here is being recorded as well, and then that will be posted on the website, the RAND webpage afterwards. So if you have something that you wanted to go back and see a little bit more of, you can do that. And then I wanted to, so after this meeting will be a little bit shorter, and we've got the UMOR Staff Recognition Award meeting that's happening just after this at 3:30, just down the hallway in the Hussey Room. So please join us after that. And I want to now introduce our MC for today. So Yvonne Sturt, she is the Assistant Director at ORSV.
Thank you, Becky. I wanted to take an extra moment to thank Becky O'Brien and the entire membership of the RAC Communications Subcommittee. So these folks do ongoing planning for the RAND meetings. I know how much time and effort it takes to plan meetings of this size, so I wanted to add my thanks to all of you. Becky's been in her role as chair of the RAC Communications Subcommittee for at least two and a half years, and the RAC Communications Subcommittee overall has been planning these meetings for years before that. So much thanks, we appreciate your efforts. As Becky mentioned, my name's Yvonne Sturt. I work in the Office of Research and Sponsored Projects, and I'm glad to be here with you today. This is my favorite RAND meeting of the year. May is the favorite meeting for two reasons. One reason is because it's finally spring, and there's good signs of that outside now. The sun is shining, it's warming up. The second reason is because this meeting precedes the UMOR Staff Recognition Awards ceremony. So we finally take some time to slow down, recognize our colleagues, and hear about all of the incredible things that they do. It sounds like our volume is going up and down a little bit. I've got a little feedback here too. Okay, so I'll keep talking while the volume is being adjusted. I hope you'll join us after the RAND meeting. We'll walk right down the hall to the Hussey Room. It's down on the left, past the concourse, and I didn't know what the concourse was until I read it, so Chris DeVries is responsible for that. If you are feeling brave, you can stop by the Vanderburg Room, which is immediately on your left before the Hussey Room, and give blood. There's a blood draw in there. We've got some liquids to get you back together if you head over to the Hussey Room after. As I was preparing for this meeting, I was thinking about why do we take the time to recognize our colleagues? Why do we celebrate and award people and honor people? And I came up with a few things here that I'd like to share. The reason that we do this is because it shows that our work is valued. For most people, the value of the reward is not as important as the fact that they know that their contribution is really valued. Another reason that we take the time to do award ceremonies is so we can celebrate and reflect on what we've done. It's nice for folks to get a break, be able to clear their minds from the day-to-day work that we do, and also see the bigger picture. Gathering and sharing experiences is a very powerful means of encouragement to all of us. Another reason why we celebrate is because it feels good. It feels good to recognize people who are deserving, and when we have nice things happening, we have good, feel-good, chemicals that come up, oxytocin and endorphins and the like. So it feels fun and good to celebrate with our colleagues. Lastly, and this is the biggest one for me, celebrating and honoring those that have achieved amongst us, it really serves to inspire. For me, every time I've gone to an award ceremony and I see what our colleagues have done, even folks that I've worked really closely with, I'm always amazed at the stuff that they're doing. I might work closely with them day after day, and when I hear some of the things that they've done and the award letters that were written, the recommendation letters, I'm always just encouraged and amazed and excited for them. So those are a few reasons why we do this each year. So today, at the award ceremony, you're going to meet four awardees, Rick Brandon, Tom Bray, Judy Carrillo, and Lori Duramity. You'll hear quite a bit about their professional accomplishments. Some of them may even tell us a little bit about, what their year has been like, or give us some comments about receiving the honor. During this particular meeting, though, I'd like to take a moment to share some fun facts about all of the awardees. So these will be interdispersed between slides. Each of the awardees was very generous and gracious, and they took time to share with us some of the fun facts about themselves. And so you think if you received an email to ask you to do that, you might feel a little bit funny about it. But these guys were so gracious and took the time to share. So I look forward to sharing those items with you too. So let's get our meeting started. Our first speaker, I'd like to welcome Bob Johnson from Procurement Services. Bob is going to talk to us about the Uniform Guidance procurement requirements that will be effective July this year, and he's going to let us know how they will affect the University of Michigan. Welcome, Bob.
Okay, so we get to talk about the exciting world of procurement and uniform guidance. Good. Let's go find the up and down button. Okay. So as you probably know already, because most of the campus has implemented uniform guidance, there's uniform guidance for procurement that sets out certain types of guidelines, and those are the references if you wanted to find them. But the good news is that the university pretty much complies with the requirements of uniform guidance. So while there will be some changes, they're not going to be very dramatic. They're going to revolve around the bid limit, which we have resolved, and I'll talk about that for a minute. Conflict of interest and sole source, both of which are, interesting topics that come up frequently with us. So to kind of get into it, the current bid limit for the university. Now, this is the limit for a purchase that then requires that competitive bidding or a sole source be created, right? And so the limit for the university has been $10,000 or greater. And under the uniform guidance, we're going to be able to keep it there. There was a discussion that might actually drop, but decisions have been made that we're going to go with the $10,000. We're in good company, even though the actual uniform guidance itself has not been published at $10,000. It seems that most of the schools are going that way. Certainly, the National Defense Authorization Act has already decided that $10,000 is the limit. And the FAR, it's anticipated that the FAR is going to increase to $10,000 as well. So in conversation with OGC and in finance management leadership, the decision been made that we're going to go with the 10. Several Big Ten schools have already done that, as other schools across the country. So the one issue that's going to be changed for us as far as federal purchases goes is the conflict of interest. You know, currently we concern ourselves primarily with the employees themselves being a conflicted party. This expands a little bit under the uniform guidance, right? It starts to include real or apparent conflicts of interest, right? As opposed to that apparent piece is new. And it also expands the conflicted parties to include members of the employee's immediate family. So that's going to be a change that's going to be interesting to have to administer and be looking for some support from the campus to make sure we do that. That includes spouse or partner, right? Immediate family. That's going to be a little different. In regards to sole source justification, it pretty much goes with what we've been doing. You know, sole source is justified when the item is only available from a single source, right? And that's typically based on technical reasons. You know, this is the only company that makes the piece of equipment or can provide the service that we need. Cannot be competitively bid, so we sole source it, right? If there's a public emergency, right, that's in line with the university's current practice. If something has to happen quickly because of property damage or you know, serious health reasons and things like that, you can move quickly toward getting a purchase in without competitively bidding it. The one that's really going to change is the one that's in red here. So this is the where the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity, right? That's our sponsor, right? Expressly authorizes non-competitive proposals in response to a written request from us, right? So today, we will oftentimes make a decision about sole sources if they are in, say, the budget, right? If there's a line item in the budget that names a particular company. We have used that in cases. It's very rare that we see something specifically stating, I need to buy a GE MRI. That was actually one we got. It was right in the sponsor's award that we're going to buy a specific GE MRI. That rarely ever happens. But so now, this sort of clarifies that whole point, right? So we're looking for a positive response, right? Express permission from the sponsor that a sole source is okay. So procurement folks, right, we get the sole source documents, we evaluate them, we try to understand them. Certainly we like to use them if we can, right? If the argument's there, there's not a problem. But oftentimes the argument is not there for a sole source. And if that were to happen, that pushes it into a competitive bid situation. And the way around that in the future would be to get permission from the sponsor. So that's an avenue probably that has always been available to us, but we've never exercised it. I'm not sure that it's ever actually been stated like this quite before. And my understanding is that might go through ORSP, right? Those kind of requests will go through ORSP as they come up. And of course, then the last one, after solicitation of a number of sources, competition is determined inadequate. You know, we put out bids, and there really is just one person that can do it. One person that's willing to quote for it. And then that's justification for sole source. So this speaks to that issue that I just talked about. So the other things, some minor things that are changing that won't really have a big impact on campus, we don't think, is in RFPs, RFQs. You know, we're supposed to use, the UG is very clear about, we're supposed to use generic specifications, right? So, you know, where we don't use name brand and we don't use very specific model numbers of a certain thing, we use a generic description. You know, what are the specifications and capabilities of
of a particular service or product. So we're going to be looking for that. We do that today. Have a documented process for technical bid evaluations. We don't have anything quite stated like that. We are going to put something on the procurement website that talks about how technical evaluations could be done and the kinds of considerations there be. As you can imagine, with a big campus like this, there's all kinds of things. So we can't be too specific, but we can be instructive in terms of what that means. So that's what we're going for. The one that's probably going to be the biggest change for procurement is the need to publicize bids over $150,000. Right? So this means it puts it out there in the public. Right? Today we can elect who we bid to. We can invite people to bid. And that's how we do it. It's much more common in public entities to have bids publicized. Right? Certainly municipalities, state government, many universities that are closely tied to the state government have to publicize all their bids, and it adds some level of competition and it adds some complication that goes with it. So we'll have to do that over $150,000 going forward, and we have and the way we're going to approach that is to post those bids on the procurement website so that people would know where to go to look for them. Right? In RFPs, right, we want to try to use small minority women-owned businesses whenever possible. And procurement will work to try to identify those companies and try to bring them into the RFQ process whenever we can. This last one is probably one that will have an effect and worth paying attention to. The firms is so oftentimes we'll have companies that will help us prepare bid specification, right? You see this very commonly in architecture, right? Where they hire an architect to draw up some preliminary plans, and those preliminary plans become the basis of the construction being able to be quoted. We have things like that in research that are that way. And under the uniform guidance, it pretty clearly says that the company that prepared those specifications is not permitted to bid. Right, so that's going to be a little bit of a change, and we'll have to figure out how we work with that. It doesn't happen an awful lot, but it does happen, and we'll probably throw a wrench in things as we get into it. So with this, so orders under $10,000 are done in the departments. Certainly the vast majority of orders that are placed are done within the departments. I haven't seen a stat on the count, but I'm sure it's a many multiple of what comes into procurement. And so as part of this, it's really necessary that departments maintain some records that identify how they made the choice they made. Right? There's still a certain requirement for due diligence. There's still a certain requirement to make sure we're spending, the public's money in the best way possible. And so maintaining some documentation to support that is something we should be doing now, and I know some departments do. The uniform guidance calls for things like that, so we want to try to make sure we sharpen up on those a little bit. And of course, the use of strategic suppliers, right? We sing that song a lot, right? The suppliers that are in market site, for instance, are strategic suppliers. Those suppliers have been vetted. There's been work done to assure fair, reasonable pricing at least, and so going to those suppliers for things like that starts to alleviate the need for that supporting documentation for under $10,000. Right. Let's see. So where are we now? We are finalizing decisions based on OGC input. OGC is part of the team that's reviewing this. We're getting some good guidance regarding definitions. The definitions of words start to matter a lot in these things. And so we're going through those and getting their help. We're redlining. We have one SPG, the procurement SPG, that we're redlining that will have some changes to it, as well as some of the internal documents, the inward-facing documents that the buyers use for purchases over $10,000. We'll be marking those up and adding to those. There will also be new information out on the procurement website that will provide some guidance about these things, and it's the place where we typically have housed that kind of information, and we'll continue to do that going forward. So we're hoping, since this is July 1st and this all starts, to get a communications out on some of these key issues pretty quickly, get the websites updated. We expect we'll have that done in a few weeks to be able to get the word out on these things. So I think that's it. Yeah, any questions? Crickets.
One question. So how long does you have to put up the posting for the external bid?
All right, here we go. All right, how long does the posting for external bids for purchases over $150,000 have to be up, and what's the length of that process?
Well, we're gonna try to keep that timeline within the timelines we have today. So we would post it when the bid goes up, and we would close it when the bid closes. Okay, so we're not going to have an awful lot of built-in advance notice on it. So it will require, people to be observant of what's on the website. Anything else? No?
Is the express probation from the sponsor in place of the current sole source procedure or in addition to it?
It would be in addition to it, right? The sole source justification as it is now is to document why we didn't do an RFQ, right? So when the auditors come through, whether internal auditors or federal auditors, we have the story to be told in that document. And so that would still be the case. I think we would look for a copy, some supporting document that would show that the sponsor did in fact expressly approve that going forward. And I believe that's in the red lines of the sole source justification form that we're working on. Anything else? Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you for pretending the drill wasn't going in the background. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to take just a minute to get to know the awardees for this afternoon's ceremony. Rick Brandon. Today he'll be recognized for the U of M Office of Research Exceptional Service Award. Rick is Associate General Counsel, Office of the General Counsel, in support of technology transfer. So, some fun facts about Rick. He's a super fan of the Treasure Hunters and Curse of Oak Island. This, he says, is to the dismay of his wife. So, I didn't know what Oak Island was at all, and I had to look it up. So, Oak Island is a tree-covered island on the south shore of Nova Scotia that has intrigued treasure hunters for more than 200 years. It's believed that the island is hiding one of the biggest treasures of all time, but no one has been able to find it. True. One of Rick's first jobs was a projectionist at a drive-in movie theater, in case anyone remembers what those are. He is currently in his 7th office since he arrived here at the University of Michigan. Now, I have to admit, I'm not sure what that means exactly. 7 different places at the university, or maybe he just got moved 7 times. I have to go sit here now and here. And finally, he met Bo Schembechler twice in his life. Once after a game in 1981, and once much later outside the Fleming Building. So I look forward to meeting Rick later. Moving on to Tom Bray. Tom will receive this year's Research Technical Staff Recognition Award. Tom serves as the Converging Technologies Consultant for the Duderstadt Center. One of Tom's first cars was a 1964 Triumph Spitfire that he drove to Ann Arbor from Washington, D.C. He sold it, and he really missed it after he sold it. Many years later, he found a 1964 Spitfire for sale right down the street from where he lived. That car turned out to be his old car. Tom's wife's name is Jerry, so yes, they are Tom and Jerry. Jerry was once on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Tom was in the audience and was part of the story that got her there. We don't know the story. His first job out of college was touring the US and Europe with Dionne Warwick. Tom says that then his hair was almost down to his waist and none of it was gray. And lastly, for his 60th birthday, he and his wife spent 4 days riding horses in the back country of Ireland. Oh, Iceland, thanks. There's a lot of people reading along. So thanks so much to Rick and Tom for sharing interesting tidbits about themselves. We'll move on to the regular updates. I'd like to introduce Debbie Talley from Sponsor Programs.
Until a tall person went before me. Let's see. This is not bad. Okay. All right, so some exciting news from Sponsored Programs and the world of auditing. So the single audit for fiscal year 17 is finally done. The last time I was here, we were hoping that it would be done by March 31st, and it was. So we had some findings similar to previous years, equipment and financial aid. I think the financial aid was on Flint campus, so unless you're from Flint, it really doesn't apply. But the equipment finding is similar to previous years. So the main thing about the equipment findings is that we dispose of equipment, we move equipment, or otherwise it leaves the university, and we don't record it properly as being disposed of. So a reminder when faculty are maybe sharing their equipment with some other person, a junior faculty or something like that, that they really do need to update the information about where that equipment is sitting. So there is going to be some additional guidance that's available related to equipment, and really from the time you purchase it to disposal and everything you need to do in between. Procurement's been working on it along with financial operations and along with Brent Haas from internal controls to really help us get our arms around the findings. This is our 4th year of a finding related to equipment, and every time that happens, the auditors then come back and focus their attention on equipment findings. So they will be scrutinizing the equipment once again this year, with our goal, obviously, of ensuring that we don't have a finding. But it's just a reminder that most of you may not be involved in the process of someone sharing equipment with another faculty member or moving it or something like that. But if it happens to be under your watch, certainly keep that information updated in the capital asset system. More information related to how to do that is out on the procurement website. So if you need that guidance, please reach out to the procurement staff who handle that. It's in property disposition or property control, I'm sorry. But it is important that we keep track of it and we properly record that it's been moved, or that maybe we're not even using it on the university's campus, that we've moved it to another campus, which is actually where a piece of equipment happened to be moved this past year. So I'm not trying to harp on it, but I just want to remind you, for those of you who were selected, fortunately this year, if there's equipment purchases, which I'm sure there were, please take a look at the equipment on those grants and make sure that things are in line. Moving ahead to FY18, we've asked the auditors to work with us earlier to actually perform the single audit. So for the past, I don't know how many years, a number of years, we have been really close to the deadline for getting the audit submitted. So it's due March 31st, it's March 29th or later, and that is definitely not when we would want to have it submitted. And it's not really anything that anyone in this room is doing, but what we have asked them to do is push that date up. So our goal this year is to have it submitted by October 31st. What a Halloween prize, right? Or trick or treat. But in doing that, we have to start the testing now. So the auditors are on site. They are going to look at the first 9 months of this fiscal year. They've selected the projects. I think all of you have been notified. And so they'll start looking at that information. Once they have done the work that they can do now, they'll be back after year-end to wrap up the audit, which may be asking questions similar to what happened last year where we had to reach out to faculty to answer questions. We're not exactly sure what their plan is, but tomorrow we have our entrance meeting with them and we'll learn a little bit more. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that they are starting earlier, and that is related to our hope that it will be done much earlier this year. So moving on, I wanted to share with you that we have some new accountants. We had several new people start on May 7th, so they have 1 week under their belt. 3 new accountants. I think that they're all recent graduates. Abigail, Nick, and Jerry, and so they are all in training right now. And they will be in the reporting area learning how to prepare reports and get those submitted. I believe that they are actually getting a report list of 5 reports each, so they get their feet wet right away with learning how to do those reports. We also have 2 interns. Our goal is always, hopefully, that we can hire interns that are interested in this kind of work and then they stay on. So 2 interns, one from Western and one from Wayne State. So there's our new staff. And the last thing, which is kind of exciting news, is that we have been working on a new way to handle the early closeouts. So there was a team of Aaron Campbell, Leslie Chavez, and Adam Mall, and they worked together to really look at a way to manage that work, mostly internally for sponsored programs, but it does affect you in a little small way. So today, when you want to close out your project early, you send those requests to your customer service financial coordinator. From this point forward, so after this meeting, you can start doing this, send that request to the early closeout at umich.edu. I see we changed the name a little bit today, Adam. So early closeout is the email address to send it to, and you'll want to make sure to complete the checklist and send that along. There will also be an announcement in the RAP or RAPID coming soon. Any questions on that? Okay. I think that's it. Thanks, Emily. Sorry for that wonderful introduction.
He's a man that needs no.
I know. There you go.
Yes. Debbie said thank you for that wonderful introduction.
That was me saying it for you.
Yeah, so good afternoon. Wow, what a bunch of people. This is a fantastic showing. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Craig Reynolds from the Office of Research and Sponsored Projects. You know I like this. Good afternoon. I'm Craig Reynolds. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, you guys are awake. We're already, how's my hair? Good? We're already behind schedule, so I'm going to have to forego all of the jokes I have prepared for you instead of get right to that later. Maybe if there's time later. Ask me over the celebration. So I'll start with a few staff updates. So Tom Zadiba, managing project rep in ORSP, he has been in our office for 25 years and is retiring at the end of June. I really have a hard time imagining what life is going to be like without Tom's sage counsel and his even-keeled approach to the work of the private sponsors team. We wish him the best in his retirement, but I also twisted his arm and got him to come back on a part-time, hourly basis after his retirement once he has some fun. So he'll be back in the office temporarily, but we're sorry to see him go, but wish him the best. Tracy Schwab, recently married and was Tracy Mossoff, was promoted to support staff manager in the office, so congratulations to her for the promotion. We have 3 new assistant PRs, so new that they haven't yet even started, so I won't ask them to stand. Joe, Phil, and Eric, 2 of which will be joining the private sponsors team, replacing Tom, of course, as if we could, and Jeff Alber, who left us last month to return to private practice. And Eric Ward, who's coming to us from Eastern Michigan University, will be joining the government sponsors team, but he'll actually be splitting his time between government sponsor work and data use agreements. We know we've got a pretty significant volume of DUAs that need to be worked through, and Eric will be helping out Maggie and others. We have 2, I'll say that in quotes, new administrative assistants. Marie Turner, who is here. Marie, where are you? You're over there. Marie actually retired from ORSP a couple years ago, and it's such a wonderful place to work. She came back. I do not understand it, but we're delighted to have Marie back. And in no relation, Rebecca Turner, sitting right next to her. Is that right? Wave to everybody, Rebecca. Rebecca has joined the team as another administrative assistant. We have Amy Webb. Amy is over here, right over there, and Amy is the new data and reporting assistant to Laura Dickey, so we're delighted to have Amy's expertise on board. And Lynn Fife is one of the new instructional designers for the Navigate team, and Lynn is also one of those individuals who just can't seem to leave the university, but we're delighted to have them all on board. Policies and procedures updates, so I'll tell you the latest version of the deadline policy. This is kind of like a soap opera, the saga just continues to evolve. But the takeaway here, I know this is pretty wordy, the takeaway is that we're going to continue to have the 4-day full review and the 2 or 3-day limited institutional review. What we're clarifying under the policy, at least for the soft launch, which we're not quite sure when it will go out because Kathy Handyside's team is very busy with award management, which was later, but what we're going to do during the soft launch period is we're essentially making explicit what is true already, which is if you get it to us in less than 2 business days, it's essentially at risk. Meaning we can't guarantee that the proposal will be compliant with the sponsor's guidelines, that the sponsor will actually accept the proposal, or that we'll get the proposal in on time because we haven't been given sufficient time to do our work. So what we're doing during the soft launch is letting everybody know, hey, you get it to us late, there's only so much we can do. And so being clear about that, I think, is a step in the right direction rather than everyone just assuming that they know that it will get submitted and surprised if it doesn't. So making what is explicit, I think, is a step in the right direction, as I said. And during this soft launch period, VP for, oh gosh, I put the wrong acronym on Jack Hu's name. It's not assistant VP, it's VP for research, Jack Hu. This isn't being recorded, is it? He'll be collecting data to make an assessment of whether or not, after the soft launch is completed, whether it will require an extension for any submissions after that are received less than 2 business days prior to the sponsor's deadline. We're leaving that up to Jack to make the determination. And I continue to work with a cross-campus group to identify what changes are needed in ERPM so that we can actually implement the policy in a seamless fashion when we do go live. Some federal updates. Many of you may have heard that the Common Rule has been delayed. That's the new federal human subjects research rule. It's being delayed until January of 2019. It keeps getting delayed, but the Human Subjects Office has, and I apologize for the Human Research Protections Program Office. That checks out, right? Sure. The IRB. They're going to pilot some of the flexibilities that are allowed under the Common Rule revision, but only introducing it to non-federal research where we have that flexibility already. So we're delaying some of the changes that are going to be required under the Common Rule until January. But in the non-federal space, we're going to eliminate continuing review for most minimal risk research, a new exemption criteria, a self-determination option for some exempt projects, and updated sponsor information section. So an email went out yesterday, announcing this pilot, so you'll be hearing more from the IRB shortly. You may have also heard that there was, in the March 22nd Federal Appropriation Act, there was a directive to NIH to delay their enforcement of the new clinical trial definition that expanded clinical research to behavioral interventions and basic research in ways that we found surprising and often, in many cases, unpalatable. But having said that, that was a directive from the appropriators to NIH. We have not yet heard what NIH is going to do to implement this appropriation. So if you've heard about this, know that it's not that we're not aware of it, it's just that we're waiting for official guidance from NIH before we communicate anything to the rest of the campus. So more to come on that front. There is something called it's Code of Federal Regulations, Title II, Part 180. It's the law that requires us to certify that none of our faculty are debarred or suspended from undertaking activities that are supported with federal funds. So we're moving to a new screening process that will allow us to more robustly make that certification. And I'm just sharing this with all of you to let you know that if your faculty hear about it, the executive officers have approved this new screening process, which we will be working with in collaboration with the Export Controls Office. All PIs and COIs on current federal funding will be screened 3 times a year. But I don't expect there to be any results. If someone was debarred or suspended, which we would know about it already, I'm pretty sure. But a new process in place. There's something called the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. This is a new European Union law. Maggie Swift over one of the PRs on our team that handles data use agreements is well aware. So why do we care about EU law? Because we are an international university that does international research, including subjects from the EU, as well as citizens of the EU, non-EU citizens located in the EU. The long and short of it is that we need to come up with some new rules around the personal data that EU citizens and non-EU citizens in the EU and how we treat that. Because under the GDPR, they have certain rights that we don't in the US have. For example, the right to be forgotten, to have your public data erased from whatever public records there are. And they're pretty significant fines. So there's a working group here on campus that's developing guidance related to the GDPR. You'll be hearing more about this. The takeaway message for today is simply know that if you see an agreement of any kind, a grant contract or unfunded agreement, data use agreement, for example, that has the acronym GDPR or references the General Data Protection Regulation going into effect on May 25th, that this negotiation, this agreement is going to take longer than normal, just because this is a new space of regulation that everyone in the U.S. is trying to get their arms around and understand. And so you just have to be a little bit patient with us as we figure out how we're going to comply with the GDPR post May 25. Finally, I'll just end with some communication best practices. I was recently at the Navigate Fundamentals training session that David Mulder puts on for ORSP and sponsored programs. And there was a panel about what would you like people to know and do to make your life easier. And so it was a mix of departmental research admins and people from sponsored programs and ORSP. And one of the common refrains that I heard was, use these communication best practices. One of which is, use email when you want to document something for later support or clarification, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the official record in ERPM. Or obviously, if you're corresponding with sponsored emails, is a good way to do that. Phone us, particularly if you've got an urgent issue, like a proposal that needs to be submitted the same day. Make sure you talk to a human being, not just leave a message. Or if you've got really complex issues or multiple issues that need to be addressed, rather than dragging it out through an email exchange, just get on the phone. It's much more efficient for everyone if we can just have a phone conversation. Post a comment if you want to create that permanent record in the system or relay information to the project team or ORSP sponsored programs. If you need to attach documents to a proposal approval form, or if you've been basically instructed or requested by ORSP to do so. And then requesting ORSP action, that's different than a posted comment, and I'll just say once again, this is for your benefit and mine, the difference. So a posted comment shows up in the activity history of the proposal approval form, and it generates an email if you choose to send it to someone. But that doesn't end up actually being in the work queue of anyone who's responsible for your award or your proposal. So if you need ORSP to take some sort of action and you want to be assured that request is seen by someone, request ORSP action, because that actually puts the path into a state that allows other people to see that there's a request that's taken care of. Otherwise, it may get lost if someone's on vacation. The person who's covering can't see that there's a request that needs to be addressed. So just note that distinction between post a comment and request ORSP action. And finally, this is good advice for everyone. If you're whatever you're doing, make sure that you provide the right information for someone to respond in a timely fashion, like give us a PAF number or a PG number or the UFA number or the principal investigator's name, the sponsor's name, your phone number or whatever it is that is necessary for the recipient of that communication to act one time without having to do a whole lot of homework to find out the background related to your request. So I think with that, I'm going to just stop and turn it over to Kathy Handyside, who, by the way, was the 2015 recipient of the UMOR Exceptional Service Award, and it has been on my list for a long time. It's one of my favorite people. Kathy Handyside from ITS.
You're one of my favorites, too. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. You trained them well, Craig. I am very excited to be with you today to share with you some information. So I do not have much of an ITS update today, but instead I have a preview for you of the new award management functionality that's going to be added to the eResearch proposal management system. So that is what I'm going to be talking to you about for a while here today. Let me tell you all the items that we're going to cover, and then we'll dig into the details. Probably the most important thing for you to know is that this is coming in early August. So you are seeing a preview today. There will be additional training for the unit folks, research administrators, as well as PIs, and all central offices. I'll say more about that in just a few minutes, but today is really meant to be a preview so that you know what's coming. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our project timeline and what you can expect. We are going to be transitioning the existing relationship between a PAF and an award as it exists in eResearch proposal management into a different relationship, so I'll tell you a bit about that. I'm going to tell you what you as a project team member can do on an award and introduce you to the new award workspace. Also, we'll be talking a little bit about the changes to the PAF, how you can request an award change because it will be different, and also a new function that you'll have the ability to do, which is to track deliverables such as reports, or things that are due on your award so that it can be set up in your award. It will send you email reminders, etc. So a new piece of functionality that I think might be of use to you. So let me start by talking about the project timeline. We are, as I mentioned, planning to implement this in early August. I wanted to be clear that I think the agenda says that it's a new system. It is not a new system. It is new functionality in ERPM. So you don't have to sign into something new. You don't have to go anywhere else. It'll be right there in ERPM for you. We are going to be transitioning all of your existing paths that are in the awarded state or active state to a new award model, and I'll show you a bit more about what that looks like. But that will all be happening in the transition to this new functionality in early August. And we're also going to be making updates to the data warehouse. So if you're a data warehouse user for proposal management, you will see changes to the existing canned reports. There are changes to the data model, and there also will be changes for those of you who have remote data access, and you'll be, if you haven't already been talking to us, we'll be talking to you in the next week or two to prepare you for that. We are also planning to do user acceptance testing in June. And that means that for the people who've been a party to our various advisory committees, our RAC committees that have had a chance to help give feedback on this in our central offices, we'll have a chance for you to kind of kick the tires and put it through its paces to make sure that the functionality operates the way you expect it to. And I'd just like to take a minute here to say thank you to many of you who have served on the advisory committees, the RAC Executive Committee, the RAC Training and Communications Committees, Process Committee, and Metrics Committees have all been involved in some way, shape, or form with this project. So it takes a village, but we're all there. And a special shout out to Craig and Brian Van Sickle, because they've been at about 14 meetings a week with us for the last year and a half, so thank you. But the user acceptance testing will also include the functionality being added to the ERPM sandbox. So if you're interested in actually seeing some of what I'm going to show you today, live and in person, you can sign into the sandbox in June and also take a look at it yourself. We are then going to focus in the month of July on training. And the training we're planning for the units will be video-based. So probably something like a webinar or a video-based training. That will be available for you to sit through it in its entirety, and also available for you to download the pieces and parts of it for specific pieces of functionality that you're interested in. So it'll be available after the fact. We'll also have all the usual job aids, step-by-steps, overview of changes, etc., to help you prepare not only yourself, but your colleagues and your faculty. So the materials will be available for faculty, but my guess is we're going to need a little help from you to make sure they're aware of anything they need to do differently in ERPM. So hopefully you will find what you need in the materials we're going to provide, but by any means, if you need something different, please don't hesitate to let us know. So that's our timeline. And the training, we will be doing in-person training for the central offices. For ORP and sponsored programs, there's going to be quite a bit more change. So they will be getting in-person training. And then all the compliance offices, Office of Contracts Administration, the Shared Services Center, everyone's life will be a little bit different. So let's talk a little bit about award and what it's going to be and how it's different than what we have today. So many of you may be aware, maybe you're not, that in today's ERPM system, there's a one-to-one relationship between a path, proposal approval form, and an award. What that means is that when that path or that proposal is funded in ERPM, it moves into an awarded state and it stays there. The reality, though, is that we have a strong percentage of our projects that are actually made up of funding that represents multiple paths. So one single award actually has more than one path equal to it. And unfortunately, we can't really do that relationship very easily in the system we have today. It also then creates a gap between how those same awards are reflected in the financial system. So you have no visibility, you can't necessarily see all the compliance and all the processing on it, and it doesn't have that relationship with the financials. So what we're going to be doing is transitioning so that now, when a path is being funded, we actually will transition that path into a different state where it will say, I am funded, but we will now pick up a new award project to represent that same funded project in its awarded state, and we'll start managing it through its life cycle from that new record. If a path is being awarded and it's actually additional funding to an existing award, that path will be associated to an existing award record so that over time, you'll actually see multiple paths on a single award. When we convert, we have approximately 10,000 awards today, of which about 1,500 are actually representative in that group, or represented in that group of many paths to one award. We're going to use the logic for the award definition based on the same logic that's used on the financial side, so that you will truly have a record on ERPM that is consistent with the record you have on the financial system. So hopefully that will be helpful to all to be able to see that. And then we're also now going to display for you all of the related compliance and subcontract information in that award record. So I will allow for questions at the end, but if you do, stop me if you need any additional information as I'm going on. So you might be saying, well, what does this mean for me? So I wanted to give you a heads up as to what you as a project team member or PI could do on this new award record. You'll be able to do things such as tracking the award progress, the details. You'll be able to see all of the related compliance components, so your human subjects applications, your animal protocols, your unfunded agreements, which are not exactly compliance, but all of those pieces will be associated to the award. There will be a link from the award to M-Reports, so that you'll be able to get from there to M-Reports so you can see more of the financial story. And M-Reports and the award will have the same award ID field, so you'll know that you're matching one-to-one. You'll also be able to manage changes to non-key investigators. I'll explain how you change a key investigator in a bit. And your administrative personnel via an activity much like you can manage administrative personnel on paths today. You'll also have a new function to request post-award changes. Function to set up deliverables for reminders and whatnot, and a special place where you can store your own unit-based documentation that is not the same as the institutional documents that will be put in place by ORSP or sponsored programs. So this is a vision of you of what the new award workspace will look like in ERPM. And I'm just going to take a minute to explain a couple of the component pieces. It should look very familiar to what you see today in a path, but you'll notice in the upper right corner, it now has an AWD number, that's the award number, and that will become the new way you reference an award once the project is funded and active. And once we build this new record will start as soon as we have documentation from the sponsor indicating that it's funded and ORSP starts the award record. And then you'll be able to track, using the status map, the project through its award setup. And so this status map looks very much the same as the one in the path. You can toggle it off if you decide you don't need it. But if you'd like to see at a glance where your project is in its award setup, you'll be able to see that in this example. My project is on hold. But it includes a step for initial award processing, which would be the ORSP steps. Hold would indicate that there's something outstanding that needs to be completed before funding can, or funds can flow. The account assignment is the Shared Services Center, setting up your new project grant number. Financial processing and pending activation would be steps in the sponsored programs office. And when that award is ready for funding to go forward, it will move to an active state. So you'll always be able to see where the award is in the workflow. I mentioned all the central offices will have a step in this process. The one that's not included in the example I have here is Office of Contracts Administration. Obviously, they're only required in some of our award setup, so if they're included in the workflow, that stop will show up here as well. And you should be aware that the path workflow will also change, because today we track many of these same states on the path. We will no longer do that. So when that new sponsor documentation comes in to say we're going to fund, the path will go into a state called initial award processing. And while this award setup continues, it'll stay there. When this award goes active, the path will move to the status of funded. And it will always be available for your reference, but we'll no longer do any activities on that funded path. They'll all be moved over to the new award. So that's the status map. There's another new meter that will be available in the workspace of an award, and this is the compliance status meter. This will show you at a glance all of the related compliance items to your award. You'll notice that we're using the indicator of yellow triangles, meaning warning, red octagons, meaning stop, and green circles, meaning go. And that is so that we make sure we're accessible to all. The compliance status will show the related compliance factors to your award as they were indicated either by questions you answered on the path or information that was added by ORSP. So if ORSP, for example, identifies that conflict of interest review is required, that would add COI to this status map. If it's a public health service funded project, it will already have the COI requirement on it. And you can see from the status map at a glance that this one has IRB approval needed in a future year. So that means that at this moment, I don't need IRB approval. So there's a yellow triangle indicating that there is a restriction on this award, but that won't apply until a future point. If IRB approval was required from the start and it had not yet been approved, then it would show as red. In a different line, it would show. We also have ways to indicate if sponsor approvals are required for the IRB or your animal protocol work. You can see that COI in this case is green, meaning COI is all set. And then it also will track your agreement acceptance requests. So this chart that I'm showing is just a small snippet of the possible things that could show up in this chart. Anyone that's related will show up, and it will be dependent on the project itself. And then the stoplights, go lights, warning lights will show as applicable to the status of those projects. It will be expected that if you have human subjects work or animal protocols, much like the ORSP reviews for today, that those things are approved before the project can go forward. So we were looking for green to go and move forward, but ORSP does have the ability to manage that hold as well. In the workspace, you'll also have some new tabs, and this is where some of the information that I mentioned at the top will display. There are some tabs that you know today, so you'll still have a tab for the activity history and the contacts, but you'll also have new tabs. For example, you'll have a tab for subcontracts that will show you all of the subcontracts for any of the paths related to that award in one place. That should be helpful for everybody. You also will have a new tab for terms and conditions, and I'm just going to go through a couple of these so you get an idea of some of the things that are coming. So, when an award has a change, ORSP will have the ability to create an award modification to update the data. So this is much like processing a PAC today. So instead they will be doing award modifications, and there will be a tab in your award workspace to list all of the modifications that have been done on that award, even if they've been done across multiple paths. They'll all show up in one place. This is a picture of the way the functionality currently exists in our development environment, but there is some more detail that we're working on and will be in place by August. So I'm going to show you a mock-up. I thought I was going to show you a mock-up. It's coming next. Sorry. So the other tab is the little dollar sign tab, which means here's where you can see the story about your money. This will show you your project grant number, as well as your funding allocations for each of the budget periods. And this is the mock-up I was mentioning. So as each modification is executed by ORSP, it'll start to build a story of the various no-cost time extensions, et cetera, that were conducted on that award. So you should have a much better picture of the financial story and how it's changed over the life cycle of your award. We also have a tab for deliverables. So the deliverables include things like progress and technical reports, property reports, invention reports, etc. You, as a project team member, will have the ability to create deliverables on your awards, and basically what that does is it allows you to create something that will be a reminder for you that there is something due in the future, and then it will also set up a series of email notifications to remind you when those things are coming due. So the email reminders, based on some feedback we got both from the Faculty Advisory Board and the Process Committee, will be sent to PIs and the primary post-award administrator. They'll be sent at 60, 30, and 5 days before the due date, as it's entered here. So you see those due dates there. After the due date, if you still haven't completed that deliverable, they will continue to be sent every 7 days until it's complete. And after 35 days, it'll include the administrative home dean of the project. Now, you have the ability to go in and edit these deliverables. So maybe you want to keep reminding people, maybe you want to change the date, we'll leave that up to you. If ORSP entered this deliverable, and we still haven't worked all that out yet, but if somebody else entered the deliverable, you will not have the ability to edit the dates. But if you create the deliverable, you can go in and edit the dates. So hopefully this can be helpful to you in keeping track of things. You also will have a tab to display all the special terms and conditions, so much like you have on your pan today, these will be all in a tab so you can easily reference them at any point in time. And also, a new tab will be related records or related projects. This will include all of the awarded paths that are on this award, as well as any related unfunded agreements, all of the compliance stuff, so all of the human subjects applications, all of the animal protocol applications, and all the IBC applications, so it's all those different related projects and all the different research systems. All of those that are associated to this award will display on this one tab, and they will appear as links so you can link out to the other system to see more information about each of those things. The Attachments tab is going to include all of the uploaded documentation, and we worked pretty hard to try and compress into new categories. So I don't know how many of you looked at your Attachments tab recently on a half, but some of them get pretty lengthy. This will include a bucket for the actual sponsor award documents, and we're going to try and keep that very specific so that anybody who's coming to the award can see here are the documents from the sponsor versus other supporting documents. I'm not exactly sure how people are defining the difference between supporting and other, and I don't know if anybody has a correction for me, but I'm sure there's somebody who came up with the rule. I don't know. Do you know, Craig? No? Okay. They're different, but I don't know how. And then there's also something that's on here. This does not come up as frequently, but some of you have enhanced IT security plans, and if you do, this is also where they will be loaded. Those have very specific security, so only specific individuals can see those, but if you were one of those people who could see it, that's where you would see it. So that's the Attachments tab. So hopefully the workspace seems pretty familiar to what we have today on PATH, but instead we'll hopefully be showing you much more information than you have access to today all in one place. There are also a few activities that I wanted to give you a heads up about and show you today. So the first one is a new activity called a Create Award Change Request. So Craig just mentioned to you the request ORSP action. What we're trying to do is make this much more specific on the award. So you'll have a new button that allows you to create an award change request. This could be, I have a question and I want ORSP's attention, or it could be that you have an actual change to your award. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a minute, but that, by clicking that button, it will open up a form for you to fill out you can fill in the information. If you have a PACR, you can upload it there and route it to ORSP, and then it will show up in their work list. Other activities include the changes to administrative personnel, non-key investigators, your ability to manage your own documents, posting a comment, because we always have to have that, and managing deliverables. And I just want to go through a couple of those for you. So the way that award change requests are going to work is really going to be a two-part process. One is for you as PI project team members to actually submit a request to ORSP using a button that I just showed you. When that request comes to ORSP, it will be reviewed by ORSP. The expectation in August is that you're uploading the actual signed PACR form that you do today, but you'll upload it on this activity. The plan post-August is that someday we would like to automate that form, but we're not going to be doing that for August. So you'll upload the form, it'll go to ORSP, they will review it, or if it's just a question, that will also be the way that you get questions to ORSP. When ORSP reviews that, they will determine whether or not a modification is required to the award, or if they need sponsor approval, they can seek sponsor approval. But once your request is complete, they would do a separate activity to change the data on the award. So let's say it's a no-cost time extension, you put it in a request, they've said, yes, we're going to do it, your request is approved, and then they'll move on and do the award modification to change the no-cost time extension date, and then they'll come back to the request and say that's complete. So it's a two-step process. That way, you'll be able to track your requests separate from the actual changes to the award. You will have activities to manage personnel, so non-key personnel. So senior and key investigators are controlled, or at least we need to inform the sponsor if you make a change to those parties, so that they have to be changed via the PACR form through ORSP. But if it is a non-key investigator, you will have the ability to make changes to those investigators yourself as the PI project team member. You'll also have the ability to change your administrative personnel. The system functionality for award is set up so that the primary post-award person has the primary responsibility. That may be different than what you're experiencing today. So that would be my one takeaway, is to think through, are these actions usually taken by your primary post-award person? We are not planning to necessarily give the primary research administrator that same role. They'll be moved over to the award as administrative personnel, but the primary post-award contact will be the one who gets most of the email and do most of the activities. So that just be something for you to think through and how you have your personnel set up on your awards. And the last activity I wanted to show you is more about that managed deliverables. So this includes the ability to add deliverables, delete deliverables, change the date or edit deliverables, as well as complete the deliverable. And by completing the deliverable, there's a place for you to upload the actual report and indicate who is completing it and what date it was completed. So it gives you a way to kind of contain all of those records in the award function in the system. So that's the preview. Hopefully you're all excited about it, waiting for August and not too freaked. But are there any questions that I can answer today?
Will the path and the award be linked together, or is the path turning to the award?
The path will be linked to the award. The path will still exist. Let me go, oops, sorry, let me go backwards. I don't want to tell David's story. The related records tab, one of the very first things you'll see here is the awarded paths. So this will be a link back to all of the paths. In this case, it's just one that are part of that award. And you can click the 17 path ID number here to go back to the path in the system. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions?
In our unit, we have pre-award and post-award separated, And the one concern I had out of this, I think all of it's really awesome, much needed, is the setup project phase. So what I think I heard you say is that a post-award administrator who's linked to the path is going to be the person who gets all the contacts. And usually that doesn't happen until we have a PAN.
Fair enough. So the email that will happen when that first sponsor document comes in that says, hey, we have sponsor documentation, we're starting the award process, that actually goes out to a wider audience, including all of the people who are related to the PAF, to let them know the award is here. If you haven't already, make sure you get all of your compliance and training and stuff done. It's not until we get into some of the post-award changes where it starts to become the primary post-award person who's doing that interaction. I don't know if that clarifies that enough.
Ish. So I'm thinking of proposals that come in and have been cut more than 20%, or perhaps we've gotten more than what we had expected and an award change is required. I guess it creates murkiness for units that have it separated as to where that role lies.
So I'm gonna do my best to answer your question, but I'm gonna look to Craig in case I say this wrong. But if a new award comes in that's less or minus the 20%, we're still expecting to do an agreement acceptance request back out to the unit to say, is it okay for us to take this award? So that process will still exist. And I assume that that's already going. We're not changing any of the communication process on the AAR. Is that covering what you're asking?
Absolutely.
Anybody else? All right. Stay tuned for more information. We hope to have a rapid out to you soon with more information, as well as an updated webpage on the ORC website with more information about details about the project and how it's rolling out, as well as when you can see training and get access to the sandbox. So, but if you do have any questions, I didn't include my email on here, but I think you all know how to find me. If you don't know my email address, you can always submit a help desk incident to DRPM. They all get to us, so we are looking forward to rolling this out to you soon, and hopefully it will be a welcome relief to some of the other things that we've been struggling with the last few years. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And Kathy got us right back on time, which is pretty amazing to do that. Okay, so now more fun facts about our awardees. We're moving on to Judy Carrillo. Judy will receive the Research Administrator Recognition Award today. Judy is Financial Senior Manager in the Department of Internal Medicine at Medical School. Judy learned the Michigan Fight Song as a first grader in Ann Arbor and has been a diehard Wolverine fan ever since. It's a good thing because both her kids went to Michigan. Her career in research administration started at the National Institutes of Health, working with the Infectious Diseases Branch. In that position, she had the opportunity to meet Albert Sabin, and he developed the oral polio vaccine. Judy's nephew plays in a local band. The band's called Joe Hertler and the Rainbow Seekers. She said we all should definitely check them out. I see a nodding head. Somebody's heard of the band before. Judy's family owned the Hertler Brothers building on Ashley Street in downtown Ann Arbor. This is the building in which the downtown home and garden now exists. Isn't that cool? And there's a picture of it. This is the old Hertler Brothers building. Judy says she has fond memories of standing on a large seed scale with her brothers, seeing how much they all weigh together. And she said they ate stale peanuts from a barrel that was meant for the squirrels. Lori Geronimotti is next. received the UMOR Exceptional Service Award. She serves as the compliance specialist for research, ethics, and compliance. A lot of you may not know that Lori loves most sports, but she claims she can't play any of them very well. She cannot throw a real football, even though her dad was a football coach. And Lori didn't tell us this, but we found this out on our own, that her father, Herb Dramedy, was the winningest football coach in the history of the Mid-American Conference. He was a football coach at Central Michigan University. And Lori's not going to like this, but she's sitting out front here at this table. But we're so pleased that she's here today. She's part of the RAC Communication Subcommittee, so she actually helped set up this event. Okay, moving on. Lori will attend almost any concert plays that's offered through the University Musical Society. She also wants to participate in the Senior Olympics when she's 90. I don't know why she's going to wait till 90. That's like a goal age for her. And although she says give her claim about not playing in sports well, that this is not likely that she'll be able to participate. But we disagree, Lori. We think you'll get there. Lori's favorite vacation spot is her family cabin on Healy Island in Ontario, Canada. She hasn't missed one summer there her entire life. And here's a glimpse of Lori's family cabin. It's just beautiful. We all want to go there, Lori.
Heck, we'll be there next week.
Well, next you'll hear from David Molter. David serves as the training manager for ORSP and sponsor programs. And after that, we'll hear closing remarks from Becky O'Brien. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Just a couple of quick items so that we can get on to the good stuff. Professional societies. Coming up is the National Council of University Research Administrators, or CURA national meeting that's happening in August in Washington, D.C. Also, the Society of Research Administrators International is having their Michigan chapter meeting on June 29 at Central Michigan University. You can visit Lori's dad. And Mount Pleasant, and our own Ruth Halsey is the current, can you wave again in case anyone missed? Our own Ruth Halsey is the current chapter president for the Michigan chapter. On the Navigate end of things, we will be accepting applications for the 5th cohort of the RAMP mentoring program later this summer for the summer 2018 session. We are also currently accepting applications for our budgeting basics for sponsored projects class. The closing date for that class is May 25th, so we should get your applications in by then. The classes themselves will be happening on June 13th and 27th. And then, as always, stay tuned to the RAP and the RAPID for future announcements. In particular, we'll be announcing shortly additional sessions of advanced budgeting classes and also our next Lunch and Learn event. We expect our next Lunch and Learn will be happening in late June, and we'll be covering the topic of working with industry and the commercialization process. So we hope to see you there. And for more information, you can visit the Navigate site or email us at navigate-research@uh.edu. And now, back to Becky.
Well, thank you all for coming. Hope that you learned a lot and some laughs. So if you have any questions or suggestions regarding this meeting, if you contact us, we've got the email address up there. Our next meeting will be Thursday, October 18th, so keep an eye out for communications about that. Again, the video from this meeting will be posted on the RAND website after a few days of getting it processed and out there. We'll also be sending out a survey again. Thank you all those who have replied to our surveys in the past. It really helps us get a sense of, things that people are enjoying, things that are working, and things we might adjust or change. So please definitely respond to those. And if you join us now in the Hussey Room, well, I'll say now, shortly, about 5 minutes, down in the Hussey Room for the New York Staff Recognition hear a little bit more about those folks that Yvonne gave some personal information about. So please join us. The Husker McGann is just